I thought this little cluster of sash windows was a great daily drawing exercise. And it was a challenge for me. I'm sure it'll be a challenge for you. And if you want to make it a bit simpler, you could just concentrate on drawing one of them. Apologies, I drew the first line before I realized I hadn't turned the video on. So thank goodness I realized at that point. However, if we want to draw all three, then we get a far better, a far more challenging daily exercise because we introduce more perspective, we introduce more foreshortening. And if it's encouraging for you at all, you can watch me get my proportions not quite right. My windows are either too wide or they're not tall enough, whichever way you might like to think. However, notwithstanding that, I've still managed, I think, to get the sense of foreshortening happening. Now, you can see me, I've started with drawing that brick corner on the left-hand side, and now I'm trying to work out where to put my verticals. And so I'm looking at the horizontal line from the brick wall coming out at 90 degrees for the glass. I'm not looking at the diagonals of the perspective angles. And then I'm trying to draw them. I think my problem is that I'm drawing this smaller than actual size, which I don't normally do. I normally draw real size, but I did make a choice to draw it a bit smaller, thinking that will give me less challenging verticals to draw because they won't be as long, and there's quite a lot close together. And I've got to say, it's a very, very chilly morning here in Sydney. It was a 4-degree morning, and it's not much more than that now. And my drawing room is very cold, so I have a little heater on, but I must admit I'm trying not to shiver as I draw these lines, which is not conducive to nice straight lines. I know 4 degrees doesn't sound that cold to much of the world, but in Australia, certainly where we are, that's a pretty chilly experience. And getting my perspective angles, you'll notice that at the top and the bottom of these windows, I've done a series of dotted lines, which give me the angle that I want, and then I was able to check that angle. But I don't want to draw straight lines on either of them because I don't have straight lines in my reference, in my scene. So I want to keep the angle correct and consistent, but I don't want a straight line. So that's my answer to that. But unfortunately, although I've drawn these windows shorter than they are in the reference, the mistake I made was to forget that when I was plotting the widths. And so I've actually plotted them actual size for my reference, and that's why they finished up being wider. So it was just a moment's inconsistency of thinking, but it did have a reasonable effect on the drawing. However, because I still have got the foreshortening and the perspective angles correct, the fact that the proportions of the windows, the height to width ratio, isn't quite right, doesn't really matter unless we want to compare our drawing with the reference. If we weren't seeing the reference, this drawing would still approximately look right. Now, the real challenge with this is because these windows are very three-dimensional, they go back quite a long way from the outside from the actual wall surface. That's what we need to capture, this sense of indenting inwards through the various construction elements of the window framing. And so that's what we're looking for. Now, I think the real value in doing this as an exercise and in doing just the windows, and particularly sash windows that are a little bit more complex holes, is that we really get to focus on an element of architecture which we often see and often need to draw in our drawings, but it's just one small detail amongst many details. And so by focusing just on this one detail, we can come to understand how it works, the sorts of, if you like, indents that the various elements of its construction make, and we can work out what lines we have to do to draw them, particularly if we're fairly close up or if the windows are very large. And it's when we come to understand more comprehensively the construction of these windows that we can see what we're looking at far more quickly when we're drawing, and far more effectively we can actually see the real detail that's there and not the detail that we're imagining is there. And by being able to see it and capture it in our minds far more accurately, we can draw it more accurately, more easily, and that's the payoff all the time. And so spending a little time just working on how we might draw a window such as this from this side-on view is a really helpful practice. And if there's any architectural element that for you is a weak spot, whether it's a dome or a doorway, whether it's doors, or whether it's other types of windows, whether it's gabled tops of buildings seen from their corners, whatever it is, those are things that are fruitful to focus on in our daily drawing. And just to focus on those things for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes in our session. As I said, you could just concentrate on the one with that would be a very worthwhile thing to do. But we do get a lot more practice with foreshortening and of our perspective angles and of lining up perspective accurately across a range of unjoined elements if we draw the three as a cluster. The other thing I do at the end here, which I wasn't planning to do, was I use some of my Copic sketch markers, my neutral grey colour, to add some value, to add some lights and darks, just to make them pop a little bit more. And I think partly because by then I'd warmed up a bit in front of the little heater and I didn't want to get up and leave the heater, so I made an excuse to stay and keep working on my drawing. That took me 20 minutes all in all to draw, but I pretty much finished the outline in the 10 minutes. In fact, I did finish the outline in the 10 minutes, and then I did a little bit of hatching with my pen, and it was while I was doing that I thought, oh look, I think I will just continue with the markers. Now, I did make a mistake with this third window in that I hadn't drawn the line that was going to be, if you like, the right hand edge of that second support between the second and third windows. And that then meant that the first vertical line I drew to represent the end of the glass was in the wrong place. And I think you can see now the impact of that. However, because I do get to hatch the underneath of that upper edge of the window, I can lessen the effect, the visual effect of that. And then when I put the ink over the top with the markers, really can't see that at all. One of the good things when we do things not quite right in our daily drawing practice is that we can experiment with how we overcome it, how we hide it or make it not so obvious. And that is really important practice to have. So do not despair when you make even a fairly fundamental error, and resist the urge to start again, because it provides us with a wonderful opportunity to practice dealing with mistakes, and not just with our hands and our pens, but with our heads as well, to learn that it's not such a big deal, to learn that it doesn't mean I might as well stop or stop putting so much effort into it, but to learn what to do. because we will all continue to make mistakes. Hopefully we won't make as many, but there will always be lines and marks that end up in the wrong places. So that's part of the value of these exercises. We really can experiment with how we hide our marks that aren't in the right place because, well, this is just a daily drawing exercise. It's not an artwork. I'm not thinking of framing it. I'm not going to give it to a friend for their birthday. This is me practicing and working out what are the possibilities with my pen for the sorts of subjects I draw and the sorts of results I'm wanting to get in my drawing. And if you're finding this helpful, please hit the like button for me because that will help me. If there are subjects that you'd like to have in these daily drawing exercises, then let me know in the comments, please. But of course, you can create your own daily drawing exercises with any subject that you want. And now we've zipped into double time. And here we go. In fact, we've gone faster than double time. We are 4 times drawing speed now. Up until this point, it's been real-time video. But now, just for these final bits, I thought I would put the sill on the window and just a few lines up top. And now I switch to my Copic markers. So this is an N1. I use N1, N2, N3, and N4. At the start, I thought that N3, this section I'm doing now, was going to be my darkest value. And value simply means lights and darks. However, at the end, I decide that I've made the overall values just a bit darker than I was planning to, and so I make that N3 into an N4. And again, this is the sort of experimentation it's great to do with these daily drawing exercises. And one thing we can do is that we can separate the practice, the exercise part of the line work and the markers. So if we have some markers, what we can do is maybe have 3 or 4 days where we save our old references and we get them out and we get our line drawings out and we apply markers to them. And we do that for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 drawings in a row over a week. That can be a very helpful way of consolidating marker skills. And that's it. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. I hope you found this helpful. If you haven't hit the like button yet, please do it now. Help me out. But I hope this was useful for you. Sometimes dealing with just individual elements of architecture is a great way to spend our practice sessions. But look, whatever you draw and however you draw it and whatever you learn from it or whatever challenges you face in it, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.